based, use our tools type of thing. I would say environmentally wise, what the current thing I'm looking at is what do we do with all of our sawdust and like all of our scrap wood. So environmentally, if you guys have ideas of like businesses, I'm thinking like a composter who would want our sawdust as brown material. There's like 55-gallon drums, every couple weeks. So it's like a lot of sawdust. It's not just a little bit that people can pick from here and there. We would like to be able to say that we, help our environment instead of just throwing this stuff in the dumpster. So if anybody has ideas on that, that's probably our main thing we're looking at right now.
Yeah, Andrea, have you talked with Leaf and Limb? Basil Camus at Leaf and Limb?
No.
They might be really interested in that sort of.
Leaf and Limb. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is that several different species of wood or trees, I'm assuming?
Yes, it's mixed, which I'm like, I've heard that like certain types of tree sawdust can be toxic. So I don't know what kind of influence that has. So a lot of it, like we'll have walnut, cedar, pine, poplar, oak and maple. That's like the main woods that's mixed up inside the sawdust.
I don't know. I was just thinking might be too fine of a dust for any kind of livestock farms. They might go for more shading or shavings, and probably would want pine. I'm just thinking of a farm I used to work on where they took carpenters' shavings and dust for all their chickens. We're able to use it that way.
Yeah.
As bedding, but mixed it may be more difficult to find somebody.
Yeah. Betsy, what was the place again? Leaf and what was it you said?
Leaf and Limb.
Leaf and Limb. Okay.
I was gonna ask, Dale put it in the chat, but have you checked with Compost Now? And then there's also Red Mill Nursery. I know they do composting there. I'm trying to think, I don't know how sawdust works in gardens or parks and properties and things like that. But there are a number of like community gardens and parks and properties that might be able to use something like that, but I'm not sure.
Okay. These are all great leads. Thank you guys.
Also sands and soils. I was just thinking that mixing it in with some of their soil mixtures might be
Okay.
something they would be interested in doing.
Okay.
Along the lines of what Benita was saying.
Yeah. Awesome. The other thing, if you guys ever come across downed trees that we could maybe slab into usable lumber, reach out to me. We can take lumber and, cut it up and use it in the wood shop. So I'll put my email address in the chat.
The city of Durham has a wood recycle. Sorry,
you just want to mute.
Okay. The city of Durham has a wood recycling program. I'll put a link in there for you.
Awesome, thank you.
And Andrea, if you specifically have Osage orange sawdust, that's used as a textile dye, and it would need to be separated from everything else, but it's something we would be willing to pay for, so maybe worth separating it out. I know that's not the most common woodwork, but
we haven't used Osage orange much, but I will keep that in mind when we do use it to kind of salvage that sawdust.
Yeah, or scrap wood, any part of the wood.
Okay.
Okay, we have a lot of organizations to get through. Who would like to go next?
I'll go. Okay, Benita Green and Merritt Moore. Community Development Corporation. For those who don't know, we sit northeast of downtown Durham on the city-county borderline. Cheek Road is the main road that runs through, but we have a 2-acre property. It's Samuel Green Senior Community Garden and food forest. So this year we're going to be doing a lot of planting of different types of beds, wetland gardens, butterfly gardens, pollinator gardens, ozone gardens, but we're also reestablishing our food forests. Last year we had Japanese silkgrass just really to take over on the property. So we had just someone come in and clear out the top like 2-3 inches of soil to get rid of all of that silkgrass. So we've got a lot of planting that's going on this year. We're also going to be reestablishing or creating an area that was just grass at our local church. It was just grass in the middle of a sea of asphalt. And so we're going to be creating pollinator gardens, probably add in a couple of fruit trees and things like that. But our organization, we're in a formerly red line community that's under rapid gentrification, and we're surrounded by industrial, and we're a heat island. So we really try to provide resources for particularly for our low income residents and long-term residents in the community. We also have a high Latin population, Spanish-speaking population here in the neighborhood. So we try to provide resources for them in the form of food access. We work in doing home repairs free of charge to those technical assistance programs. We also do a lot of climate action work because we are a heat island, and the air quality is typically not that great over here. So we do a lot of work in those areas as well. And invite anyone that wants to come out, take a tour, play with us in our garden, learn a little bit more about the community. Very happy to have you come by.
So you're starting an ozone garden?
Yes. And so what ozone garden is, because we have so much industrial and traffic that comes by, there are specific plants that are sensitive to the rising levels of ozone and that are in the air. And so they kind of wither and they respond poorly when the ozone levels are high. And another thing that is a sign of high ozone levels. Do you ever see the spider webbing that comes up in trees and shrubbery and bushes? That's a sign of high ozone levels as well. So, like I said, we do air monitoring. We do a lot of client assignment, science-based projects over in this area because we're trying to understand what the root cause of issues are, so we know what to advocate for to provide better resources for the people who live in the community. And I'm going to have to step off in just a minute because I have another meeting. So, sorry.
Looks like Preston has his hand raised.
Yes, thank you. Bonita, I'm a certified permaculture designer and consultant. If you guys bump into any issues with some of those fruiting plants or want some recommendations on what I've experienced as the most urban tolerant fruiting trees and shrubs, I'm happy to help. I do a lot of work with foodscaping, and we just live in a weird climate, like a transitional climate where fruiting trees, it's either kind of too cold or too hot for them or whatever. But if you bump into issues, I'm more than happy to help. And I'm going to speak on behalf of David Bradley and the Open Space Program. We're working on some projects in Durham that I'm really excited about, and hopefully some volunteer opportunities will emerge that we can all kind of work on some environmental protection projects out there. But we're creating some signage and some information for some really great destinations in Durham. I could really use actually some New Hope Bird Alliance help in the near future. Barbara, I'll reach out to you about some verbiage about bird habitat and specific species, but also wanted to throw a plug out there. and I'd be willing to talk with you guys, for a session about a project I just won. I've just been brought on as the environmental artist in residence with the Dix Park Conservancy, which, as you know, is the kind of the new central park for Raleigh. And what I pitched is for our inaugural year to be a land acknowledgement, not only the communities that were here before my ancestors arrived, but also to reimagine what historic landscapes in the park looked like, grasslands, essentially. We're hoping that it's going to be the largest de-lawning project in the Southeast, but it may also just kind of be like a little amuse-bouche. I'll find out Wednesday. I may need some help from community members relative to engaging with Indigenous communities, engaging with communities relative to ecology, conservation. And so I'm going to need a big team to pull off what I have in mind, but just wanted to put that, you guys are the first to hear it. So just wanted to kind of put it on your radar. It may be an incredibly exciting, what we're trying to do is basically show municipalities how to just release some of these landscapes from emotional mowing and allow for early successional habitat to be a norm in municipal regulated landscapes.
Betsy, it looks like you have your hand up. If not, we could also jump to Maggie and then come back to Betsy.
Yeah, so I do a lot of work in Raleigh, and so I'd be happy to connect with you, Preston, on this.
Betsy, did you have anything you wanted to add before we jump over to maybe another project we want to talk about? If not, we can have someone else jump in if you would like to share about your plans. Yes, Barbara.
Hey, Barbara Driscoll. I'm with New Hope Bird Alliance. This is going to be our 50th year as an local chapter for Audubon, and we have a lot of big plans coming up. But some of the top priorities for our conservation team are working on and working with other environmentally inclined groups to come up with some best management practices for development as we work through the UDO process with the City of Durham and County of Durham, as well as Orange County. And we just did this with Chatham County, but there's some other municipalities also revising their development ordinances, and we would like those ordinances to be as bird-friendly and people-friendly as possible. And then also working with Durham, we're going to work on Durham becoming a biophilic city. And a biophilic city, there's a network of them. I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but it embraces nature and the environment as elements of meaningful urban life, which actually fits into a lot of what Engage Durham responses were, and incorporating that into kind of an overarching part of the whole Engage Durham UDO development process, as well as continuing our bird-friendly habitat residential visits. Still be doing that in Durham, and helping others, assisting others with their projects as they need for any kind of bird-friendly plantings. That's it for me.
This is Betsy. I'm sorry, I had trouble unmuting myself. Technical problems here, but I think Benita may have already left, but I was just going to ask if she had contacted Durham Tree Keepers to see about getting some help from them for trees, and wondered a bit about the type of trees, if she might have room for trees that are larger trees to help with that heat problem. Thanks.
I can answer partially. We are having a tree planting day on the 25th, but I'm planting arborvitae trees. The property is right now is only about just a little under 2 acres. So I would actually have to ask our gardener exactly what capacity of trees we're able to even take this year. But I know that we're planting some privacy trees in the front of the garden space the week after next. And while I'm unmuted, if I can share one thing, this is a very early feeler out for it, but if any groups are participating in the citywide nature challenge in the spring, MMCDC is interested in collaborating and partnering. Whether, I mean, some of y'all from the have partnered with on several BioBlitz events before. So if there's any interest in that, MMCDC is definitely interested in participating in the citywide nature challenge this year. I'm gonna go ahead and put my email in the chat, so my updated email, if folks want to get that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think we usually try to schedule the BioBlitz to overlap with the City Nature Challenge so that they do dual purposes.
Right.
Yeah, sometime in April, I believe, usually.
Great. And I believe Brooks had something. You wanted to share with the
Yeah,
group?
no, it wasn't necessarily to well, actually I could combine piggyback off of what Barbara talked about with New Hope Alliance in terms of the biophilic cities. As many of you probably know, biophilia was this concept that was developed by Edward O. Wilson, which is obviously the namesake of our foundation. And so Barbara, I would love to chat about if Durham is in the process of maybe becoming a biophilic city. That would be super exciting and probably something that we would want to be, we would collaborate with you on, or maybe see if there's a way we can work together. But I think in general, with the foundation that we do, we focus on number one, trying to increase engagement with nature and the power of nature through education programs. We have a whole educator ambassador program where we engage or develop lesson plans that are focused on the importance of biodiversity so we can get children to care about species. And then we also have programs that look at trying to map out and identify every single species on the planet, which is no small task. And we try to put all that data and information together on an open access map called the Half Earth Project Map, which everyone can access. And if I think of it, I'll share a link. But part of what I do is I try to increase engagement with that map, with that information to move the needle on biodiversity conservation, but also support researchers around the world that are identifying and promoting biodiversity research, as well as mentoring the next generation of biodiversity scientists, as well as highlighting innovative and communities, different groups that are taking kind of unique steps to preserve and protect species so that we can assure that in the future, as many of the species that we see today are still around for our kids and our grandchildren. So we're based in Durham, and I'm happy to, a lot of our stuff is international, but I also think that we should increase more of our impact locally. So happy to be here, happy to share a little bit more, and happy to collaborate with any and many of you all in this format.
I can tell you a little bit about Durham Wildlife Stewards. I'm Ra. Betsy Ross is on our board. We are a new organization of the NCU Wildlife Federation, and we're just on the cusp of becoming an official chapter. We've just raised enough money to do that. We'll be working with Keep Durham Beautiful's invasive removals in the Durham parks. At least 4 times a year, and we're going to be doing it in January 25th and 26th at Hillside Park with them. We're going to be bringing a talk on the endangered red wolf to the library in March. We'll be working on Creek Week with UCAN and Delphine Sellers. We're going to help her at the Little River for a Creek Week project. We are going to be bringing a raptor program to bring some raptor birds to the library soon. We are nailing down the time of that. And we're looking to collaborate with any organization who needs any planting done. I'm thinking of LA, I'm thinking of maybe Merritt Moore. we'd love to come and help you plant. We have we have a grant to do a big project we need a lot of help with at the Salvation Army Boys and Girls Club on Austin and Liberty. We are supposed to make a garden for them. And so I would love, really, really love anybody who could help come and visit and help us sort of design that and plan that. So, and we also would love some manpower with that. So I will put my email in the chat and love to collaborate with anybody here. Thank you.
I'm happy
to go. Oh,
Oh.
okay. Knew that was going to happen.
Okay, go.
Megan and I are going to tag team some updates. So just as a reminder, we are with the Duke University Superfund Research Center. We're an interdisciplinary environmental health research center based at Duke. And we collectively are representing the Community Engagement Core and the Research Translation Core, which are two what are called support cores of the center. So we support the work that the researchers themselves do. So we do have a few updates from the last couple of months that we would like to share. I will kind of let Megan start us off, and then I will follow up with a few additional updates.
Hey everyone. So one of our geographic areas of focus is Durham. We've been working a lot with PEACH, which Kiara, you're gonna have to run that acronym off for me. Partnership.
Or in, well,
that's not very helpful. We'll put it in the chat. It's a long acronym. They work primarily with Durham residents on lead poisoning prevention and advocating for safer lead practices, and also they do a lot of education for practitioners who do lead renovation restoration. So we worked with them on their National Night Out event this past fall. And as part of that event, one of our Superfund research teams was recruiting residents of McDougall Terrace for a wristband study so that we could take a look at what kind of lead exposures people are exposed to, and see if we can figure out ways to assist them or help them do better lead safety practices in their own homes. We also did a follow-up event to that where we had lead kits for folks to take to their homes with things like boxes to keep their shoes in at the door, doormats so they can wipe their feet, wet cleaning cloths and mops and that kind of thing. So we've been involved with that over the past couple of months. And then, Kiara, I'll turn it over to you so you can talk about some of the environmental health work we've done outside of Durham.
Sure. So our other geographic area of focus is the Lower Cape Fear River, which is the area surrounding Wilmington, North Carolina. We have worked primarily on fish consumption, subsistence fish consumption efforts in that area. So trying to protect those who are fishing from the river for food or for out of need from contaminants like heavy metals, PFAS, PCBs, PAHs. So we are continuing those efforts. We have a really amazing network of partners that we work with out on the coast. The most recent dictates as far as PFAS, unfortunately, imply that no level of fish consumption is safe from the Lower Cape Fear. So we are currently trying to rework some of our materials and messaging to help keep people safe, with the understanding that there's still socioeconomic and cultural factors that are going to prompt people to fish from the river and consume what they're eating and share what they are catching with others. So we are going to reconvene as a group hopefully shortly and discuss what's next.
Additionally, we have been working on an effort with the Waccamaw tribal community of Eastern North Carolina to test their well water, drinking water for PFAS. This came out of an initiative back in 2023 where there were soil scientists that helped the tribal community test their backyard soils for PFAS and heavy metals. Levels of heavy metals, thankfully, were not tremendously concerning, but there were elevated levels of PFAS. Most of the community being on well water, this prompted concern about PFAS in drinking water. So we were out there on December 7th collecting over 100 samples, or close to 100 samples. I don't remember what our exact number ended up being, but we are currently processing those in a lab at Duke, and we will hopefully have some results in the next couple of months, which then we will share back with the tribal community and help to do some remediation and or prevention efforts.
Yeah, I just want to add, our winter newsletter is about ready to go out, and we'd love to include you on our email list. If you drop your email in the chat, I can add you. Thanks.
And one last note is that we were previously, Megan and I were unable to consistently attend these meetings because we had a regular standing team meeting that conflicted, but we have changed the time of that meeting. So now we should be able to attend more regularly.
Thank you, Superfund Center team, for sharing your updates. Does anyone else have anything they'd like to share? And then don't forget to pop your emails if you would like to receive a newsletter from the Superfund Center team.
I'm happy to share some information from the open space program, if that's all right. Just a couple highlights, few highlights from this past year, and then a couple exciting projects coming up. So last spring, we acquired 129 acres on Orange Factory Road, which was exciting for two big reasons. One, that put us over the 4,000 acre mark in terms of land that's been protected by the county over the years. And then also it is the site of a future nature preserve and the farm campus. So you'll probably hear a lot more about that this coming year as we continue to move forward on that. We also have been moving forward with a 268 acre parcel that we protected about 10 years ago in East Durham. This is on Santee Road. We've hired a consultant to start the planning and community engagement and all of that stuff for creating a public park there. Also something you all will hear about in the coming months. We had a lot of great volunteers this year and started an open space steward program. We also had a bunch of people help us out with some really great research. So the New Hope Bird Alliance and North Carolina Biodiversity Projects did a very comprehensive breeding bird survey at the Bottomlands Trail this past year. That report's on our website. I can put that in the chat in a little bit. We also had people help us out with some moth research at the New Hope Bottomlands, and that included a very well-attended public moth night event. They found 5 species that hadn't been found in Durham County before, which is pretty cool. And then we're in the midst of a bunch of great land protection projects right now that we'll hopefully be able to kind of finalize over the coming months. And then as Preston mentioned, we are also working on some really exciting signage and kind of restoration projects at a couple of places. We got a Burt's Bees grant back in the spring to help fund some of that. There'll be definitely some volunteer opportunities and also just more information about that in the coming months as we move forward on that. So just a few of the things we've been working on.
I'm really interested in hearing from Courtney about what Piedmont Fibershed does.
Thanks. Piedmont Fibershed, we're a Durham-based organization that, as our name suggests, serves the Piedmont region of central North Carolina as well as surrounding regions. And our focus is building a sustainable regional fiber and textile economy. So we're really looking at how we can use the natural fibers and dyes that are grown and produced in our region and getting more people using those and use it to develop a healthy environment and healthy communities.
So we work sort of across the supply chain. So we start with farmers, we look at manufacturing all the way to makers and markets. So our focus is sort of like that big picture and connecting and solving some of the gaps in that supply chain. So our big project of the last year was surveying small farmers in North Carolina who raise fiber animals. So sheep, goats, alpaca, Angora rabbits. There are a couple other little things in there. Because what we found is we heard from a lot of farmers that they were not able to sell the fiber that they were producing. So people have barns full of fleece and don't have anywhere to sell them, which is a real shame considering that that's a really useful, wonderful material. So we did a survey to find out sort of the specifics. Not all wool is not all wool. So different breeds produce different kinds of wool. We asked people about how much they're producing, what kind of animal breeds, how far they had to ship it to be milled, where they're getting it milled, and then, excuse me, sort of who their customers are and what their challenges are. And so we've just put out a report on that survey. And our next step is bringing together people who are in our community or who are interested in these issues to help solve some of these challenges. One of the big issues is a lack of small mills that can process the fiber. So, and we're interested in tackling that, but that gets into looking at manufacturing infrastructure. So it's pretty tricky and a pretty involved project, but we're excited about taking that on. We're also involved in education, so helping people learn how to grow and work with natural fibers. We're going to be doing a fiber weekend in Franklinville at Deep River Folk School in April, where we're going to be doing a tour of the NC, the Future North Carolina Textile History Museum, and learning about a lot of natural fibers and that can be grown and produced in this area. So what else have we got going on? We're working on doing a project to grow a small plot of flax in Saxapahaw. Also working on hopefully working with small farmers to grow natural dyes that we can sell to a natural dye supplier. So that's what we're working on. We're always interested in looking for people who want to learn more about natural fibers or dye plants, or who work in this area, or who want to work with those materials. So if you're any of those things, feel free to reach out. I'll put my email in the chat.
That's really cool. What is keeping the farmers from like selling? Is it just like a lack of buyers, or?
It's a combination of a lack of buyers and a lack of the lack of mills is an issue because very few people want to buy just a fleece that's been sheared off of an animal. And so if you can't, we found that many people have to ship at least more than 250 miles to have their fleece cleaned and made into some sort of sellable form. And so that's a big issue. And for some reason, even though there's demand for these very small mills, they keep closing. So there was one in Michigan that a lot of people on the East Coast and Midwest were sending their fleece to that just closed. And it's mostly because the people who run them are retiring. The other issue is being able to find people who want to buy them. You know, farmers are not always good marketers. And that's a tricky thing. So the people who tend to do well are people who can farm and know how to sell things, but that's a lot to ask. So, and there are also just sort of like limited places you can sell things. I mean, one of the frustrating things for me in this role is like people are asking me for a material called roving, which is wool that's not been spun into yarn, but is in these sort of like long fluffy tubes. And there are lots of people who produce it, and people who want to buy it, but there's nowhere you can just go to buy it. Like you can't buy it at a craft store. You have to wait for a fiber festival, which happens about once every 4 months. And then, you know, you might have to drive several hours. So trying to solve some problems like that, where it's just like, how do we create this market so people can actually buy the thing they want to buy?
Very cool. Thank you for sharing all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk about this forever. So if anyone ever wants to talk more, just let me know.
I wanted to share some things about the garden, but wanted to say it's nice seeing some familiar faces on this call. Courtney, I don't know if you remember, we met a couple years ago at the garden. If you ever haven't read the book, Out Watering Horses, it's about fiber and how the fiber community can unite people. But it's a really beautiful book about horses and sheep and fiber. But anyways,
Jamie, I'm just gonna jump in. Jamie let a friend and I dig up a bunch of goldenrod, and it is growing all over the place, and it's the best goldenrod for dye. So I'm very excited. It's enormous. I made beautiful things with it. So thanks very much.
I bet it is enormous. I'm glad that you appreciate it. We did had to do a full scale removal. It was a little bit too much for our space, but I'm really glad it could be used by y'all. One of the programs I manage is called Gardens for Everyone, which builds on a sliding scale payment structure, 4 foot by 8 foot garden boxes for neighbors. And something initiative we just kind of soft launched for the holidays was a gift a garden program where folks can buy a garden or a garden box or multiple for their neighbors, other organizations, etc. So that way you can surprise somebody or just kind of buy a box on somebody else's behalf, and there's a bit more structure to it now. So if you're interested in doing that, in helping somebody else garden, grow their own vegetables, flowers, fibers, I'll leave my email and I can connect you with our Gardens for Everyone program and that initiative. Also, just while I'm here, if anyone knows of any grants or funders who may be interested in like helping a garden or organization transition to more battery-powered lawn equipment, garden equipment, like mowers, weed whackers, blowers, some of our basics, I'd love to transition those tools to battery-powered tools rather than gas. So yeah, just let me know if you know of something. And I think that's it for me. Thank you.
This is Betsy. Would it be okay if I go ahead with the Sandy Creek and the concerns about this Pickett Road zoning project? Okay. So I'm very concerned about Sandy Creek Environmental Park and the wetlands and preserve there, and Keep Durham Beautiful has had a lot to do with that. New Creek Corridor Coalition, it's so hard for me, Corridor Advisory Committee, and the of course New Hope Bird Alliance, they're all on, and then Rob Bickley with Durham Wildlife Stewards has jumped in with this as well. There's a big project, in case you don't know about it, if you're not familiar with Sandy Creek Park, I would suggest that you go over there and take a look. It's just really wonderful, and it's a really amazing inner city wetlands and preserve area that we have, and it's not that dissimilar from the wetlands area that Duke has at Al Bueller, by the Al Bueller Trail. It's a really important water supply for going toward New Creek and Jordan Lake Reservoir as well. And this proposal is to take land that is off of Pickett at the intersection where Ridge is, if you're familiar with this, and where I still call it Emerald Pond, assisted living. It's now Celesta, and but I don't know if the pond there is still called Emerald Pond or whatever. But there's a trailhead to this to Sandy Creek right off Pickett, and there are only about 2 parking spaces there. But you can get to the park by the frontage road that follows down 15501. And if you know the veterinarian there, maybe that's what is I'm blanking on the veterinarian, but it's a kind of a popular one. But if you go down that road, and there's plenty of parking down there, and they have done beautiful work with accessibility to the park, that area at that end, and great swings, and there's a place to play bocce ball and different things. And there's been a purple martin houses planted there, and there's a bird duck blind there that has for observing ducks and not killing them, and lots of wonderful things for our wildlife and the wetland preserves there. And it is additionally a flyaway area for migrating birds, and there's a wonderful habitat for birds and other wildlife and plants. And it's really, really important, in my opinion, to keep this and keep it intact. And it's just unique. If it goes away because of this big development they're planning right there, it's going to be gone, and that's just tragic. So what they're planning is a 150 zone for 150 apartments, and now they're saying 140 apartments with 145 parking spaces. So this would create a tremendous impermeability issue. I have walked the land, and it's 100-foot hill above Sandy Creek that would run straight down to Sandy Creek, construction pollution, and then pollution from stormwater runoff to Sandy Creek, which is also already a tremendous flooding area, has a big problem with flooding already. And so it's going to create way more problems with that. And the building they're proposing is a 3-story glass building facing Sandy Creek and the park. And so
I'm wondering
on top
if you have some information you could put into the chat that people could follow up with if they're interested.
I'll try to, but I'm having a little bit of trouble with my phone. And so I had to get off of my laptop because I lost the connection. And so I'm just trying to do the best I can. So
Sure.
if there's a 100-foot hill and then 3 stories on top of that, that's going to create a tremendous tower effect over Sandy Creek with all its glass frontage, and create a big light pollution problem for Sandy Creek, which will destroy wildlife and really disrupt the flyway there for migratory birds. And so anyway, I will put my information in now for anyone to contact me personally if they would like to have information sent. I've been doing a whole lot of research on this and would like to get as many people and organizations involved. This is time sensitive, and I think I buried the lead. I'm sorry. It's very time sensitive. It goes in front of the city council for vote Monday, February 3rd at 7 p.m. Thank you for listening, and I appreciate it. And I'll do my best to get some information in on the chat. But again, I'm having a little bit of trouble with my connectivity. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you, Betsy. And I do want to be mindful of time. I know that we have a minute left. So if we have any final announcements, please feel free to jump in. If not, please remember that you can always email the listserv if you have any announcements or anything you'd like to share with the group.
I could share a little bit about Keep Durham Beautiful. We have a number of events coming up. We just finished our flower bulb distribution, 24,000 flower bulbs. We have Martin Luther King Jr. Day of Service coming up. We have 8 events scheduled, service projects, and so far we have 100 people signed up for those, and I'm putting a link in the chat for that. We also are seeking nominations for the Durham Garden Tour, which will be in the end of April. And so we're looking for gardens to consider for that tour. And I put that chat in there as well. Last year we had 4,489 volunteers contribute over 9,000 hours on 449 events. So we just finished our annual report, so we have that pulled together. So I wanted to share that. Laura, do you want to share anything about your organization or your program?
No big updates. We've just been doing some programming with students. But I will share that we will be meeting in February with the EABUDO group. So please be sure to join us next month for that meeting.
That's it. One quick thing.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great job, Laura.
Everyone, bye-bye.
Tanya, thanks for inviting me.
A chance to share your thing.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I appreciate it. This is super.
Of
I've
course.
been wanting to get involved in this for a long time, and I'm so glad you got me in it.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Being here.
Yeah. We Durham Wildlife Stewards is going to do at least 4 invasive removal